All set?
Yes, we're ready, Dave.
Ready to go, Karen? All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is our 7 o'clock regularly scheduled remote session of the Board of Education. I am going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There again will not be a hearing and privilege of the floor tonight. However, I want to let people know that if you submit a question, I will see that we add your question to the hearing and privilege of the floor section of the minutes so that it's put in public record. So folks would be able to see the answer to those questions, and your comments and your position and concerns or statements that you want to make will then be recorded as part of the meeting. So thank you. Next, I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent's comments.
Thank you, Dave. And folks, in preparation for your look at the resolution I submitted to you in terms of high-risk sports, I'd just like to give you and our audience a little update. On January 27th, the Schenectady County Public Health Services published adopting guidance and requirements.
Susan, I'm sorry to interrupt. Is it
If
possible to
you're
be
not-
closer to the mic?
Yeah, it's not coming in clear, Susan.
Oh, okay.
Nope, Susan, could you grab the mic that we put near Drew and move that in front of you?
Sure.
Sorry. Thank you. Is that better?
Much better.
Much better. Okay. So this is, as you remember, we received guidance from the Schenectady County Public Health Services on January 27th about what it was going to take to resume high-risk sports on February 1st. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to assure you that we've actually been working on this since August, because at that point we were still hoping for fall sports, which you know have been pushed off to March. So when we got the guidance from SCPHX, we had some things already in play. But again, I just want to review what we need to do to get ready for the possibility of competitive play. So the first thing you will need to do is determine whether you are going to support the resolution I submitted to you this evening. And you could support that resolution in full. You could support that resolution partially. And by that, I mean you could say, I could support us playing this and this, but I can't support playing that. Or you could say, no, we don't want to play any high-risk sports. And you know that at least 2 of the schools in the Foothills Conference made that decision. They're not playing any winter sports. That would be Glens Falls and Hudson Falls. So that's one of the steps we need to take and what I'm asking you to undertake this evening. A second step is that the school superintendent oversees the development of what I call safe play protocols through our athletic director, Mr. Rockhill, who's been working both with his coaches, but also with athletic directors in the Foothills. And our protocols are currently under review with our school physicians as required. Each parent and guardian has to sign what's called an informed consent. And parents have always signed consent for their students to participate in athletics. But this is a different type of consent that refers to your willingness to participate in contact tracing, eliciting who you've been with, and other types of behaviors if in fact someone is diagnosed with COVID. So our attorneys have drawn up the document for informed consent. It's quite a rigorous document, and we are in possession of that. And we are asking that both parents, guardians, and our student athletes review and sign that form, which basically says, again, that they will cooperate if in fact there are any outbreaks of COVID. And each district must establish an anonymous tip line, and they're recommending email, but there isn't a way to make anonymous email per se. So we're counting on our tip line so that anyone who has questions or concerns about our protocols for COVID, about athletic play, about certain athletes, any of those kinds of things, coaches, has a place to call and leave those concerns. So those are the major underpinnings of what we're being required to do by Schenectady County Public Health. And all of that is well in play. Not every county is going about this in the same way. Some counties are allowing play, even if their county's above a 4% rolling 7-day average. Some counties are asking that students be tested prior to play. Unfortunately, what I think the counties had hoped for was that everybody would be on the same page, but it is a little bit different in different places. Why I think it's good for you to know that is because we are the only school in the Foothills Council that is in Schenectady County. So there isn't anyone else in our county that we would play. Warren and Washington counties, I believe, are both right around 5 or 6% infection rates right now. Although at least Warren County has said our kids can play at the higher infection rate. But that will make a difference because technically they couldn't come here and play because Schenectady County is requiring 4% or under. So there are all these interesting little nuances that we're going to have to work out, and that could, in fact, result in us playing folks who are not part of our council. And that remains to be seen. You may have seen yesterday's article where they're talking about the shortage of referees. Again, that will be another piece to contend with. And finally, we're going to have to look at, if in fact you approve the resolution, the time of our games and how we play so that we can get folks in and out of here in a timely fashion and get our buildings cleaned and then disinfected and shut down for the next day. So we are moving on all of those things, have been moving on all of those things, and I hope that that background will assist you when we get to this item on the agenda. And I would suggest that at this point, if you have questions about anything I've said, that would be a good spot to discuss them is when we get to the resolution. Dave, I'll give it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Yeah, we have three items to discuss before that, so let's get through those. The first one is the state aid update for the budget of 2021 and a discussion on the state aid cap, and I believe we're turning it over to Drew.
Yes.
Okay, go. Good evening, everybody. In your package, you have two analyses tonight, one on the tax cap computation and one on the state aid analysis. Together, the tax levy and the state aid make up 90% of the funding of our budget for 2021-22. Unfortunately, both components are flat when you look at the analysis that I provided. So I'll start with state aid. As Susan has mentioned, the state is using the $2.3 million of the federal stimulus money that was approved in December to offset a state aid reduction of the corresponding amount. So when you looked at the numbers that I analyzed, you saw that we are basically $3,600 above and beyond the the 2021 budget. So we're relatively flat. As Susan said, we don't bank on money that's being talked about until that money becomes real. So right now, 36% of our budget is the same number as a year ago. Are there any questions on state aid analysis? Okay, I'll move on to the tax cap. The tax cap, which our tax levy is about 31 million in our prior year budget, comprises 54% of our funding. As you can see by the analysis that I provided, our maximum allowable tax cap is 0.13% or $40,884. So again, that's relatively flat from the prior year. The reason is it's based on a few factors that I identified in my memo to the superintendent and shared with the board. The consumer price index is 1.23%. So without any exclusions, that would be our increase. However, it's mitigated by a couple of factors. Number one, our debt service versus our building aid, which is called the capital exclusion. That is going down in 2021-22 because we have more debt falling off related to the aid coming on. So it's a good thing that we have debt retired, but on the tax cap, it's not a good thing. Payment in lieu of taxes or pilots are going up in 2021-22 by about 380,000, I believe. That has an adverse effect on our ability to raise taxes. So the 1.23% consumer price index is reduced by the fact that the pilots are increasing from the prior year and our capital exclusion is going down from the prior year. So that's the 0.13. Please note that a contingent budget has a zero growth levy, so we're almost at a contingent budget when it comes to the funding of our budget. In our history, only once has Scotia Glenville School District went to the voters to override the tax cap. That was 2014-15 when we had a 0.27 tax cap and we went out with a 1.76 tax levy and the voters supported that. That was also coming off of 4 years of layoffs totaling 75 people. So we're just starting to come out of the gap elimination era. So that's the update on tax cap. That's the update on state aid. When your revenue is not going up, it's not a good harbinger of the budget that you'll be seeing first draft at the end of February. Are there any questions?
Drew, just to be sure everybody read this sentence, we have to probably at our next board meeting, we will have to make a decision what we're going to do because it has to be submitted by March 1st.
Correct.
Okay. Questions for Drew?
Go, you want
We have to announce what we think we're going to do, right? We don't
Yes.
have to actually come up with a limit.
Susan correctly noted that too. It's the state likes to know, so they can go to the newspaper for the 750 districts and say what you're doing. But the board has its right to, up until they adopt that budget, to change their mind.
Right. We're just giving them a heads up of the thinking.
Correct. Thank you, Susan.
Okay. Move on, I guess. Drew, there were no questions.
School bus proposition. I provided the superintendent and the Board of Education got a copy of it, the proposal to go out and replace 4 72 passenger buses. Little bit of an offset from the trade-ins. This continues our process of a 10-year replacement program to replace buses that reach that threshold. And Dave Massaro had some good questions that I hope I addressed in my memo, but I'm going to go over them because they're good questions. It's not all predicated on mileage. It's one of the factors with mileage and body condition. So a bus could have less mileage than another bus being replaced. It all depends on what we look at. Even though we assess it as good or fair, we look at what DOT is going to be assessing and the time it's going to take to bring that bus back on the road when DOT takes it off the road for body work, brake work, or other conditions. So a lot of things go into that thought process. We try to look ahead, knowing that we get into the 11th year, and we went through this a few years ago. Dave and Pam might remember that we bypassed the bus prop 1 year and we kind of paid for it because we had a lot of buses off the road. DOT is much more stringent, especially since this Harry limousine crash. They really upped their standards all over the place on this. So you can see the debt service that we've lined up with the aid. I showed you that. So we're trying to keep, as debt's falling off, replacing it with new buses to keep that momentum going. And you are receiving 70% back in state aid on what we purchased for the buses. So the local taxpayer is picking up 30%. The bus prop for 2021-22 will have no impact on the next year's budget because we'll not borrow that money until the summer of 2021, and then it hits the following year's debt service. The other question Dave Becerro asked was, and he's right, the trade-ins are getting lower and lower, some of it due to the pandemic market. But we did look into other districts with this auction. It is available. Bethlehem, South Colony, Burnt Hills, they utilize auctions and are making more money in lieu of the trade-ins. But right now, I didn't have the resources this year to devote to looking into it. We had to move back from Hillside. That was the priority. And then the pandemic hit. So I will assure you that we'll look into this for the next year on auction versus trade-in. So what I'm looking for is the board's approval to move forward so we can give the manufacturer a letter of intent like we do in other years so they can put us in the hopper for these buses. But it does not tie the board or the public into buying these buses if the prop's voted down. Are there any questions?
Questions?
Why is it too late to go to auction?
Because I don't have time to go look into it and go through all the regulations, Rick, right now. So don't have the resources this year to do it. Those were big districts doing the auctions, by the way, not the mid-sized ones. They had a little more resources this year.
Any other questions?
I would just like to reiterate what Drew said about the trouble we got ourselves into when we skipped getting buses for a year. We were playing catch up for the longest time and had trouble having enough buses and whatever. So we really felt that we learned our lesson, or those of us at least that were on the board at that point learned our lesson, and feel that going ahead and getting buses every year spreads it out and keeps all our buses in working order so that we can function properly.
Working and safe.
Yes, working and safe.
Let me get a poll here, what folks think. I'll just basically go by the screen again, who I'm seeing. Cam?
Definitely.
Dan?
I think we should.
Dave?
Yes, please.
Hal?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Rick?
Any chance I can buy one of the buses for 2,000? I'm a yes.
Maybe the Board of Education can have a bus. I like that.
I need a bus. I'll take a bus.
Same here. Yes. So I believe, Drew, you can move forward with the letter of intent.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the discussion of the senior citizen aged exemption.
As per the memo that I drafted for the superintendent and shared with the board, it's our 8th year of which the board has been increasing the threshold by $500 per income level. I've displayed the county, which is the ceiling on this, which we're behind the county. But to the board's credit, they've been making this increase each year. And I've also displayed that it's a 0.56% shifting of the levy, which historically has been 0.58. So it's been very consistent by doing this pattern. The board has enhance the exemption, but maintain stability on the burden on the rest of the taxpayers. So the reason I'm asking for it tonight is your approval is we need to have a hearing at the next board meeting. That would allow the seniors to go to the assessor and get the change made for the ensuing tax roll on March 1st. Are there any questions on that?
Questions on this? Sorry, Drew.
It's okay.
I've always been in favor of increasing this slightly. Our seniors are having a very difficult time in meeting their taxes, and any little break that we can give them has been greatly appreciated.
And we're trying to catch up.
Well, we're ahead of the town.
Yeah, we're headed to it. Very true. Folks okay with this?
Great, yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you all. So, without further ado, I guess, resolution number 8. Can I get a motion for resolution number 8?
Dave, I'll motion to approve the participation in high-risk sports to be conducted in accordance with all requirements prescribed by Schenectady County Public Health Services, for the activities in such sports to be conducted in accordance with the metrics set by Schenectady County Public Health Services.
Thank you, Rick. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Hal. Before we get into discussion, there's a lot. I think everybody has statements, comments, questions. To make this fair so everybody can speak, I'm going to ask that you sort of limit your initial statements to like a question or two, your initial main topics. And then when we get around to everybody, then we'll open it up for more questions, because I just want to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak, equally here, because I'm just going to go by, again, what I'm seeing on my screen here. So, Dan?
Sure. So have we heard from our doctors yet?
Yes, we have heard initially from them, Dan. They wanted to remind me that any student who wishes to play under this guidance, who has had COVID, needs to have a new health clearance done by their doctor. I'm sure all of you have read, there have been concerns about COVID and its impact on heart function. So that's a piece that's not clear in the guidance, but we are well aware that that has to be done. And then they will get back to me with any other concerns they have.
Dave?
Let's see. I think I just have one question. Just so everybody listening is on the same page. Do you know what our rate is for a 7-day positivity rate for COVID and the hospital bed capacity, just so everyone knows what those numbers are?
Sure, Dave. I actually double checked because they changed the data sort of midday. So the county's 7-day rolling average today is 3.3, which would allow us to play. If we got back to 4, we could go back to practices where students are basically, for example, in basketball, each student has their own ball and their own basket to practice. So it's not an interactive practice. And then hospital beds are at, available beds are at 27%, and ICU beds are at 20% availability. So both of those metrics are good right now. So that's hospital beds are for the capital region, not the county, I'm sorry. The rolling 7-day average of 3.3 is for the county. And then our rate of infection in the district has been just at or under 2% since September. That's for all in-person students and staff. schools have not traditionally been the challenge. That is even true, has been shown true in terms of athletics, the actual games or competitions themselves. However, infections have increased because of the socialization prior to sports. If you were allowing students to use the locker rooms, which you know is not part of our protocol, that it's more the social issues, students gathering outside, maybe for a team dinner, those kinds of things, but not exactly, not as closely tied to the actual sport itself. You will note that one of the sports that we could have brought forward was wrestling. We did not. In conversation, I just don't think there's any really safe way to be that physically close to one another and wrestle. So that's why you see the sports that you do. Did I answer your question, Dave?
Yes, yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Kim?
So the one question I had was reading through this, will we be requiring them to wear masks at all times?
Yes, and I don't think the protocols, Jamie and I had a chat today about temperatures, and I'm sure there will be some additional adjustments in terms of the protocols from our physicians. So Kim, I am guessing we will be wearing masks during the rest of those activities.
And will there be consequences for students who do not want to wear their mask or take their mask off while they're playing?
They won't be playing.
Okay.
Because we and I say that Jamie and I haven't actually talked about that, but I can tell you that I can't do that because I can't have that. It's much like signing the informed consent, which frankly could be a little bit of a scary document, but you either have to agree or you're not going to be able to participate. And I'd remind folks that to me, this is just a first step. We talked about this on our health department meeting today about, so what will apply to other activities like chorus and concert and band and the choraleers and drama? Will it be the same kinds of protocols? Will it be different protocols? This is only a first step, and we've got to be successful. I can tell you, I can share with you that Mahanason, which has not had a competitive game yet, but it has practice, has both their boys varsity and boys modified basketball teams on quarantine right now. And when you think how recently the guidance came through from the county to do this, that's not a good sign. So yes, people are going to have to, and that includes my coaches. I mean, we're talking everybody who's going to be in that gym has to follow these same guidelines.
Pam?
Whether or not we should, do this. I know sports are very, very important for the kids. Just for example, my great niece has taken part in soccer and basketball in Ohio, and she is now on her 4th quarantine of the year. So that kind of scares me that, I see it in actuality of how many times she has been exposed and had to be out of school, and it's very much disrupted her school. But yet again, I know how important sports are. So I'm really not sure how I feel at this point.
Okay. Rick?
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I couldn't be more for this. Obviously, I think it's good mentally and physically to get back to sports. I do have a few questions though. One of which is wrestling. Is that something that I know we probably aren't going to put on the table right now, but can it be revisited within a certain number of weeks, Susan?
Rick, the season's going to be very short. They've truncated all of the sports seasons. So I'm not really sure we could get back and revisit it. I want to be perfectly honest about that. There are some schools that have chosen to wrestle. There are other schools that have not. But at this point, again, I think, and in speaking with Jamie, we're both feeling that that level of physical contact is more than we're willing to risk.
And Susan, you discussed that with the coach as well?
Jamie did, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Did our district physician have a feeling about wrestling, whether it was a good idea or a bad idea to participate?
Our district physicians did not initially want us to do any high-risk sports.
Okay.
You might recall that they sent us an email. The governor approved high-risk sports on the 22nd, and on Monday, the 25th, I forwarded the board an email from all 4 of our physicians saying they couldn't support high-risk sports.
Rick, you have a second question? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. And just the last thing on wrestling. I mean, what about wrestling being able to be allowed within the school where they could practice and not compete against other teams? They're already in school and similar cohorts already, for them just to continue to wrestle.
We could certainly have that discussion, Rick, if that's a direction the board wants to go. I would put that right into the resolution. I'd amend the resolution because the board has to approve each of the individual sports.
I'd like to propose that we do amend it, that we are able to revisit it at some point in the future. It should we all decide. We don't have to say we're going to play, we're going to participate in wrestling, but to fully exclude it, I think maybe we should leave some language in there to look at it again. Should kid numbers continue to trend down? Can modified teams practice?
My guess is that they are in the open gyms that we're currently running, but we will not be playing or traveling with modified. We will have to limit, because we have to limit the number of kids on the bus and the coach and all those things. So really we're focused on JV and varsity.
That makes sense. Is the middle school gym being used?
As a lunchroom and sometimes as a study hall.
Okay.
I'm going to jump to Hal for a minute, Rick, and then come back to you, just so Hal can get some questions in too.
I think I probably have as many as Mr. Frederick does.
We'll just go a couple and then we'll go back.
We might be a while.
I just
So quick, like Susan, has there been any guidelines that have come out from the government on activities in clubs yet, or just for high-risk sports?
Just for high-risk sports so far, Hal. We talked about this with the Department of Health today on our phone call. Most superintendents are very anxious to hear what's going to happen, what we might be able to do. The limit on gatherings is still 40. People were thinking that because you could have a wedding with 150 people after mid-March, after Valentine's Day, I think, that would apply to things like concerts, but our understanding through the health department is that it does not. And today, Keith Brown, the interim SCPHS director, told us that he suspects or expects that we will be receiving additional guidance about those particular activities sometime in the next few weeks.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
And then, quick, like to piggyback off what Rick said, as we go forward talking into the spring sports, the conversation about modified, I think, needs to be brought up by us as a board and the community, because what I'm being told right now is there's no modified kids at open gym at all. And
Okay.
The middle school kids are not allowed in the high school. So you were leaving out a big section of this sports community. And I agree with you, Susan, that we need to get kids in sports and activities, and it should be all for one. But unfortunately, due to our governor, we're not able to do it all for one right now. We're only able to talk about sports. And I think that that's what we need to focus on right now until we can talk about clubs and activities. And then we need the same passion from the parents and that avenue too. So I have a bunch of stuff too, like Rick does, but I'll yield my time back, Mr. Dave, for somebody else here, only to come back. So, but I'll be waiting.
Okay, Dan, any further questions?
I had a question about would participation in these sports be open to all students regardless of how they're learning?
I'm sorry, Dan, regardless of what?
Their learning situation, whether they're
Yes, yes,
remote or
yes, yes, even fully virtual students are allowed to play. Yes,
And I totally get that you have to draw the line somewhere, right?
yes.
But did you consider freshman basketball too?
Yes, but there's no way we can manage it all.
Yeah.
It's gym space, it's transportation, it's being able to keep people socially distanced. I just remind folks that we are using almost every gym throughout the district as a classroom.
Yeah.
At this point. Again, to maintain our 6 feet of social distancing for instruction. So we don't have quite as much free space as we did.
Thanks.
Thanks, Susan.
Dave, any more questions?
No, I'll defer my time to Rick and Hal.
Kim, questions?
Nope, I'm gonna let Rick and Hal go.
Pam?
No, I have none either.
Okay, Rick?
Thank you. Just to keep going on that middle school where I was at. So if there were to be, volunteers or students or players that were willing to move the desks to the side of the middle school so they could have one more gym to practice and then commit to putting them back, would that still not be an option to open up a gym for other teams that are not junior varsity and varsity to play?
I would say at this moment, Rick, that's not an option because I've still got to be able to get those spaces clean and then sprayed down with disinfectant every day. I cannot leave that in the hands of students to move things back. I understand there is a real hunger for more. I would hope the board can see that what we're recommending is a huge step for us. That we have spent a lot of time working on facilities, whether or not we could actually accommodate this, how we could make sure we were still getting our cleaning done, our disinfecting done. So at least for this short season, and again, I'm talking this short season because my guess is we will have to have these same discussions when we bring back the fall sports in March. If everything goes well this time, we can look at other options. We might, although it's a little early, be able to get outside for some things at that point. But truly, I've brought you what I think we can manage and manage safely.
Okay. The last thing is, when would teams be able to start if the board approves tonight, the resolution?
Well, technically tomorrow, although we had open gym today, technically tomorrow, but I'm smiling because we're supposed to get snow again.
No.
Hal? Thanks, Rick. Sorry. Hal?
Yes, sir. The one question I have about the protocol, when it comes to JV, we're only looking at one coach for JV. And I think that with the athletes that are playing, as well as all the protocols and guidelines that the coach now has to do, plus coach a game, make sure all of his athletes or her athletes aren't hurt. I think having one JV coach is a little hard on that coach. I see that we are allowed to have 10 students per team. So what happens if, let's say, girls JV has 9 athletes playing? Is that a possibility to have an assistant coach or a high school coach, an intern, so to speak, help? Because as Rick can tell you, and I can tell you, you're trying to herd a lot of cats. I don't care if they're seniors or they're kindergartners. So I think one JV coach is a little hard, honestly. That's one point that I wanted to make. I strongly feel, I know it's hard to believe, that getting our kids back on the court and back in the fields and back playing instruments in art club and every club under the sun is important. I hear from everybody and people that are watching right now who thank you for watching. This is the most we've had in a long time, so thank you, everybody. Our kids are struggling in school and they're failing, and it's very disheartening to see these kids that I've known since kindergarten that are struggling because there's no coach there in their life for the most part to hold them accountable, or you, Susan or Karen or Pete, to get their grades up, where their head coach, regardless of its youth football or regardless of its youth lacrosse or modified, they're busting their stones on a daily basis to make sure they're doing their diligence or they're not playing. And benching a kid is the hardest thing in the world, but there's no accountability there. So I feel strongly, as you can tell by my voice, we need to get this going. And I think a big frustration that I hear from everybody is, and I know it's a big word that we talk about a lot in Scotia Glenville, but the communication, and especially with this, we need to really look in the mirror, as Dave Anderson says, look in the mirror before you point fingers at anybody else. And Susan, what you said during your comments was awesome, but I think we should have said that last week, because the amount of frustration from people that are listening here, as well as texting me right now, is that they need to be involved a little bit. Not behind the scenes. We do a lot of stuff. I get it. I do with what I do for my job, as Rick and everybody does. But just to keep the community involved with, hey, we're planning something. We're working on it behind the scenes. This is what we're doing. We understand it's a pain in the butt to get this done with referees and gym space and cleaning and a limited budget and the Foothills Council and everything else we have to deal with in Scotia Glenville. But we need to be proud of what we're doing in our community. And I think we dropped the ball on this one, to be honest. I support you, as everybody knows, 100%. But I think we need to look at our communication going forward for fall, because basketball people are awesome and cheerleaders and ice hockey is a passionate group. But we need to make sure we get this right, because the football community, they're an interesting bunch of people. And we need to make sure that we're communicating with everybody on everything. And I mean art club, Spanish, everything that we're doing, to get full community support for everything that we want to do in the future. So modified is big. And I say that because we're excluding 7th and 8th grade students. Youth is starting. We said football sign up yesterday for youth football to play in August. And, now JV and now varsity, but yet 7th and 8th grade kids are kind of sitting there going, well, what about us? What no one likes us. And, we need to reassure them, no, we like you. Most of you we like, but we just got to keep going. So that's my soapbox. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I took up my time, but I'm
There's no time
about
limit,
this
Hal.
subject here. So we need to get our kids involved. And, our community is a great community, but when we all aren't pulling on that same rope, it makes it very, very difficult for not only the administrators, but for the board members to have to hear the same thing all the time, as far as we need to coach, we need to be involved, we need to get our kids back, we need to put our arms around them, and we need to get them going. So, okay, sorry.
No apology necessary. Points well taken, Hal. We can always do better.
We can, thank you. And, I hope, as to kind of wrap up quick, sorry, when you talked about before who we can play, if we have to stay inside Schenectady County, I'm sure that Mark and Jerry wouldn't mind playing schools in Schenectady County that aren't necessarily in the Foothills Council, so they can get their, men and women athletes playing with, Niskune and Shalmont, Mahonison, Duanesburg. I'm sure McKeel wouldn't mind a game. So I think we can find a way to play as many games as we can within Schenectady County if we have to.
And we are already talking about that with those school districts and those superintendents.
I knew you
And
were.
the ADs I know are talking about it. So
Thank
yes, thank you.
So I think Rick and Hallam made their points of what their feeling is with this. I don't really have any questions. I think you all covered the questions. I feel comfortable that we are working within the protocols and the direction we are given. I know it's frustrating to a lot of parents that we move at a different rate than certain schools do in the surrounding area. I'm not going to get on the soapbox about it because I think we do it right and they do it wrong. But that's my opinion, and we learned a lesson from this. I think, better communication, better structure, and we'll continue to do that. I think the fall sports are going to benefit as well as the spring sports. Health, to your point, that we're going to be able to open up more playing fields, more areas where kids can play. Because of the gyms being all used for classrooms, it does limit our ability to include more kids, and that's difficult.
Yeah. Football players and lacrosse players don't mind getting muddy.
No, basketball players don't either. They're right now. I think anybody would play a pickup anywhere they can play a game anywhere they can play. So,
and baseball. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll wait. Dan, we got to. I'll go around for a. I don't want to call it a straw poll, but give your opinion on what your thought is with moving forward.
I think this is a good hard decision, personally, because I think fundamentally this makes our students less safe. I do. I understand it's not a dichotomy, right? It's not either safe or unsafe. It's a measure of degrees. I think this increases the risk of, kids getting sick and, putting future events in danger. At the end of the day, I think I'm going to vote yes, because I'm fine with letting parents make that decision for their own kid, right? And I hope that parents will think long and hard about if that's what they want for their kid. Some parents are fine with it, some parents aren't. I'm okay with kicking the decision over to them.
Thanks, Rick. Tim?
I have the same thoughts there. I am nervous because, it's still so risky, but I think we need to start somewhere or we're not going to be able to bring the arts back. We're not going to be able to bring those clubs back, and those are important for us also. So I think we need to take that step and see how it goes. And it's in the parents' hands if we're going to be able to continue, if we're going to be able to play football. This is going to be the make it or break it. So I think that, parents need to make those decisions. And so I'm going to go with a yes, as nervous as I am.
Pam, your thoughts?
I absolutely agree with what Dan and Kim have both said. They said what I was going to say, basically. I will vote yes because it's the parents' decision at the end.
David? Dave?
Ditto. Yeah, I agree with everything. I'm going to vote yes, despite all my reservations with this.
Hal?
Let me think about this.
Okay. Rick, since Hal's got to think.
I'm nervous too. Trust me. This is somebody that's just getting over this and who had it pretty bad. This is scary stuff. And I agree with that. But I think at the end of the day, we need to be adults. Our coaches need to be held accountable. Our student athletes need to be accountable. The AD, everybody needs to make sure that we pull this off the right way. So, yes.
Yeah. And Rick, I think you already made your yes known.
It's a factual conversation where we've been approved by the state, approved by the county. We have the proper guidelines and protocols. We have trust in our administrators to enforce the protocols. And yeah, this is a big step into getting back to something that's great for the kids to be able to participate in. I do think that we should also amend it to potentially have the opportunity to have the conversation again about wrestling and modified freshman sports, just not shut it out. And And lastly, maybe use this as an opportunity to start to push for protocols for things outside of sports and the fine arts, and start to have the directors of those departments start to put what they think an in-person protocol would look like. That way we're not, you know, you can hit the ground running.
It's been, Susan had already mentioned she started that. So.
You know, it'd be great for the, yeah, I know that, but let's kind of see some drafts, you know, maybe the boards can look at that so we can make a decision quickly rather than, you know, wait. Thank you.
So, you know, I think Dan said it, my position with it. I feel less strongly than Rick and Hal do about the benefits of this, although I don't. Listen, I coached for 42 years, everywhere from semi-pro to 6-year-old kids, actually 5-year-old kids. I taught. And I know the value of it. I used to do tutoring to our athletes in Scotia to help them be able to play. I understand how strongly it is, and I really want them to play as well. And I'm voting yes for it because I think parents know what's best for their children, and if they believe that this is their child needs this, then I want to make sure they get the opportunity to do this. I also vote yes because, as stated by everybody else, I think that we have the right protocols in place. I know that we will not bend protocols to allow things to happen that shouldn't happen. And I think that because we are so strict about these protocols, I think it's a safe environment. It'll be as safe an environment for our kids as it could possibly be. So, you know, I those of you who know me know that I am a huge lover of the music and arts program in this school, as well as the sports, and probably have been to almost every concert that's ever happened. And I think I missed the Choraliers once. I was in the hospital. So I agree. I think this is a great opportunity to get us moving forward with the clubs and the music and the arts programs. And, you know, I'm glad that work is already, that conversation's already started. I appreciate, Susan, you speaking about this with the county health department and the superintendents to try to get this thing pushing in that direction too, because I think, you know, we talk a lot about the sports being what the kids need as well. I think it's the same thing for all the other kids as well. Those kids who don't play sports and you know, have a passion for history or something, letting them get together and have that camaraderie, like others have said, is equally important. So I'm going to ask for a vote, an official vote. First vote would be an amendment to add a review wrestling based upon how things are going. A second vote would be to add a look at freshman ball based on how things are going. So the first one would be all those in favor of holding open the look for wrestling. Aye.
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 3. I only got 3.
Aye.
4. 4 to 3. Or nays?
Nay. Nay.
2, 3. Okay, nay. Okay, so we would look at wrestling down the road, freshman sports, adding that. Yays?
Yeah.
Yay.
Nays?
Nay.
No.
2,
Nay.
3. Tim?
I mean, yay, because we're just looking at it. We're not making a full decision yet.
Yeah, if we're looking at it and the board gets to revote, I would go with that. Um, with those two resolutions added, very clear yep.
I'm so sorry. Did that include the ability for middle schoolers to use the high school gym since the middle school gym wasn't included? Not to participate in a league, but for middle school to use the high school gym?
I think that's outside of this resolution. But
I was gonna
Susan,
I'm happy to look into that and work through and Jamie and the administrators to see if there's any space, because it's really a space question.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
okay, with the amendments, all in favor?
Can I ask a clarification question?
Yes.
The amendment, can you explain what the amendment about wrestling is?
The way it was worded was that we would re-examine wrestling at a later date to see if there was a possibility to add wrestling to maybe just practice as a group for wrestling. Is that answered, Dan?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And the board will vote on that prior to that happening. The idea was it would be re-examined at a later date. Though not including wrestling in this one. So this still pertains to the sports that are listed in Susan's proposal to us, but leaves the caveat that we would look into those other two areas.
I guess I just don't know what that means. I mean, because those seasons are starting soon, right? And in the future, it's really nebulous.
Well, I think we have another board member meeting in February. We could examine then whether anything has changed, where things are looking and going, and make a decision at that point.
Can I?
Yep.
So can I ask that we could re-examine it in the future? It's a season, and perhaps that they can at least practice together should the doctors and the board and everybody feel it's safe within the school, not competing against others.
Yeah. Yeah, not competitive outside the school. We can look at that at the next board meeting or the board meeting after that, while it's still, the season's still going. So, any other clarifications or? Let's make an official vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 3, 4. Aye, 5. All those against? Nay? Those abstaining? So moved.
Be safe out there.
Be safe, very safe.
Dave, what's the final vote on that? And who's the yays and the nays, please?
I have, I believe I had, I'll go through an individual. Dan?
I'm going to vote yes.
Yes. Kim?
Yes.
Hal?
Yes.
Rick?
Yay.
Yes. Pam, you were a yay?
Yes, yeah.
Dave?
Yes.
Yeah. It was 7, Pam. I had no nays and no
Okay.
abstentions.
Good. I just wanted to clarify.
Yep. Next is the amendment between the Scotia Glenville Central School District and the BOCES. Can I give an appointment?
I'll move that we approve the agreement between Scotia Glenville and the Capital Region BOCES as submitted.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll second.
Aye.
too.
Thank you, Kim. Kim seconded. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? So moved. Next is the appointment of Audra Hanley.
Motion to approve appointment of Dr. Audra Hanley as AED coordinator for the 2021 school year.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any questions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Next is the memorandum between the Scotia Glenville our school district and the employees local 766 and council 66.
Motion to approve the memorandum of agreement by and between the Scotia Glenville Central School District and Scotia Glenville School Employees Local 766 and Council 66 of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Dave, thank you. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Okay. 6 yeas, 1 abstention. Next is the accept the revisions to the Susan Beth Eden's Dobler Scholarship originally established in June. Can I get a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you, Rick. Second.
I'll second.
Talbot, seconded. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Next is the resolution to accept a gift. Can I get a motion?
I'll move that the board accept and appropriate the gift and donation from Life Touch to the middle school's attendance program initiatives, and also that we accept and appropriate the gift and donation from Alliance Energy for the Lincoln School Science supplies.
I'll second.
Any questions?
I have a question. Is this an annual gift from Life Touch or donation from Life Touch?
No, it's not. It's because things didn't go tremendously well at the middle school with pictures this year. And I think folks are trying to make things right.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Next are our reports. CASPA.
Nothing to my knowledge.
On the CASPA thing, I was asked by the School Board Association to talk to them again on Wednesday. They had a few presidents that had asked if we could have a follow-up discussion to the last one that they had asked me if I would help work with them. So I'll let folks know how that goes after it happens. Legislative liaison.
Drew talked about it a little bit when he spoke. I guess the biggest thing right now is waiting to see if the state gets aid and if that trickles down to the schools.
Thanks, Dan. Any questions for Dan? Okay, next, PTA.
We have not had any meetings that I know of. And also, while I have the floor, Health and Safety Committee, I have gotten a memo from them that we have met the requirements through all the stuff that we have done for the COVID virus. So we will not be having any more meetings this year.
Thanks, Pam. Audit Committee.
Nothing new at this time.
Budget update. I will just say that we are getting very close to entering budget season, which is always a lot of fun. This year, probably not so much. The other thing is I wanted folks to know that I'd been asked by the chief of police in Scotia if I would participate in a group that he has put together, a citizens group. I'm not participating as a member of the Board of Education, but I did want folks to know that I had been asked to participate in that along with some of our school officials who had also been asked. It's really around working with the chief to make sure that we are following the guidelines that have come out from the governor's office, but also just to ensure that the policing of our community is being done within the way that the citizens of the community want it to happen. So, just want folks to know that just in case. And if you live in the village and you want to share some ideas, please feel free to get a hold of me. 16.
I will move communications A through E, staffing 1 to 7, placements of children with disabilities, and the minutes for the meetings of January 11th and January 25th as submitted.
I'll second.
Excuse me, before you vote on that, I do believe that there's one that needs to table from Bobby, communications or staffing. Under E from communications needs to be tabled. I apologize.
Okay, I will amend my motion then to table E.
Thank you, Pam.
Okay.
Pam, which one did you amend? Sorry.
She said E in communications. Number
Gotcha.
16,
Okay.
E has to be eliminated.
Thanks. I just wanted to make note of it.
Thank
I didn't hear all of what you said. Sorry. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? So moved. Any questions on the treasurer's report? On the budget transfers, January 2021? On the payroll warrants, number 20? On the checks, A26? And H15? If there's no questions, we'll move them forward to Drew with approval. Thank you. Is there other business that the board needs to take up? Okay. Again, with the hearing and privilege of the floor, I ask that if you submit your questions to us, we will put them into the minutes and hopefully with an answer. We'll have an answer for your question. I only say that because not all questions that we get are asking a real question. But we will put in the minutes those as they come in over the next day, I guess. Other business before I take it. Do we need to go into exec? If
No.
not, before I ask for an adjournment, I want to thank everyone who joined us tonight. I thank you for your patience. I want to thank the board who I didn't participate. I took the opportunity for those board meetings that were broadcast, and I watched a couple of them to see how they had gone. And I want to thank each and every one of you for this discussion, which was, I'm trying to think of the right word, but significantly more civil than some of the meetings that I had opted into listening to. Great job by everyone. I thank everybody for their hard work and thoughtfulness on this and all the time. This is a board that thinks very hard. So personally, I wanted to thank you all for such a great job on such a difficult conversation. With that, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn, and I'd be remiss in not thanking everyone in the administration for this as well. I take a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Thank you. I need a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor of adjourning?
Bye.
Aye.
Is anyone abstaining from adjourning? Is anyone voting no to adjourn? With that, everyone stay safe, be well, and take care of everyone, and we'll talk soon.